My name's Aaron Massey and welcome back to another episode of Homeschooled. For today's project, I'm going to show you how to install a hardwood floor. As part of the remodel for my son's bedroom, we're installing new hardwood floors. In this case, we settled on a dark, distressed bamboo hardwood. A common complaint with bamboo hardwood floors is that while they're really resilient to dings and scratches once they're installed, the tongues on them are really brittle. So installing them typically requires gluing them down rather than nailing them down, which can be a little bit messy and challenging. Fortunately, the team at Power Nail sent me their new hardwood floor nail gun to test out, and they claim it's specifically designed to install brittle tongue hardwood flooring. This nailer is much smaller than a traditional hardwood flooring nailer and doesn't require a mallet to hit the nail gun and shoot the nails. I rate these projects by how many F-bombs you're likely to drop while tackling the project. This one can be a little difficult depending on the room or area you're working in, and requires a few specific tools. Before you get started installing any hardwood or laminate flooring, you first want to measure the room to determine the square footage of the room, and then checking that with the flooring you're going to install to see what the square footage coverage is per piece or per box. I recommend you purchase 10 to 15% more flooring than you need to account for cuts, waste, and any damaged flooring that comes in the box. Also keep in mind the flooring in the surrounding rooms that connect to it. You always want to try and choose a floor that is roughly the same thickness as whatever is around it, so you don't have a bunch of different height floors to try and dress up later. In this case, I could get away with a hardwood that was 9/16 thick to keep an even height with the hallway. You don't want to choose a floor that's too thick or too thin that you have to try and come up with a fix for later. Once you've purchased your flooring, bring it into the house or area it's going to be installed and let it acclimate to the climate in the room for a few days. The humidity of your home can affect the flooring, so you never want to install it the same day that you purchase it. Next, you need to prepare the subfloor that the hardwood is being installed over. In this case, I removed some old carpet and found old 2x4 tongue and groove subfloor underneath. Check the floor to make sure it's nice and level, and do any necessary work to level the subfloor if you have to. I'm not going to go into a huge amount of detail on the various ways to do that in this video, so we'll assume the area you're installing is fairly close to level. In this case, the subfloor was in pretty good shape. Go around the room and knock down any old nail heads or remove any staples or things sticking up from the floor, and then thoroughly clean the area with a shop vac. You also want to remove any existing baseboard moldings in the room. In this case, the baseboards are actually old built-in baseboards that are plastered in with the walls. I don't want to remove them because I would risk damaging the walls, so I'll custom make some new baseboards later to go over them. Next, you want to determine the layout of the flooring in the space. I like to start by finding the longest straight run in the room and working my way off that point, making sure I won't have any sliver cuts or funky shaped pieces to deal with later on. This room is pretty square, so it's not that big of an issue. Keep in mind that many old homes have walls that are out of square, so adjust your measurements accordingly. Measure the finished width of your boards and then adjust where your pieces will line up so you don't have any really thin sliver cuts to deal with at the end. Make sure to plan to stagger each joint by at least 6 inches and avoid H joints where 2 rows line up that aren't at least 2 rows apart. Once you have your layout roughly figured out, next install a moisture barrier on the floor. In this case, I'm using red rosin paper, which is a cheap product that's been around forever, but they also make a ton of other products for this. Lay it out in the room and overlap it by 4 to 6 inches with every row. You can staple this down and tape the seams if you want to. Now you're finally ready to start actually laying your flooring. I like to use a small piece of the actual flooring as a tap block to make sure the pieces are firmly seated in their grooves before shooting them in place. They sell kits you can buy that contain tap blocks and bars, but I find using a chunk of the actual floor doesn't slip as much and there's less chance of damaging the edges of the flooring. Make sure you leave an expansion gap around the edges of the flooring at each wall. I recommend at least a ½ inch, but it depends on what you're going to be using as your baseboards to cover that gap. This will allow the flooring to expand and contract with changes in the season and humidity. Follow any markings you laid out on the floor during the layout phase to make sure you're laying the flooring correctly. Once you have the first few rows installed, you can use the flooring nailer from here on out. Follow the manufacturer's guidelines for spacing out your nails. In this case, this flooring is recommended to be fastened every 4 to 6 inches. Coloration on the floor can vary from box to box, so as you work your way through the room, make sure you're taking pieces from various boxes as you go. You never want to do half your room and then find out that the next box is a slightly different shade. When you get to door jambs, use a piece of flooring to act as a depth gauge to cut off the bottom of the casings at the height of the new flooring, and then slide the new flooring underneath. Don't try to cut the flooring around the casing because it looks terrible. Work your way through the entire room, and when you get to the final row, face nail it in place as close to the wall as you can. You could patch any nail holes with matching wood putty, or you can try to cover them with the baseboard or shoe molding that you choose. Lastly, install any transition or threshold pieces to blend the floors together. As I mentioned earlier, I'm custom making some baseboards to go over the existing in this room, but now you can install whatever baseboard or shoe molding you choose. And then you are finished with this project. Well, that's it for this video. I hope it was helpful for you in tackling your own hardwood floor install. It can be a little tricky, but with a little knowledge, I'm confident you can do it on your own and get great results like I did. I want to thank Power Nail again for sending over the nail gun I used in this video. It worked perfectly for this flooring and was super easy to use, and I didn't have any problems with the tongues breaking or being damaged during the installation. And if you guys are going to be installing a hardwood floor, I highly suggest you check out Power Nail's website for a full list of their products. If you did like this video, please hit that like button and leave me a comment down below and let me know. Also, you can find more information about installing a hardwood floor, along with many other home improvement projects on my website at MrFixitDIY.com. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.